Welcome to Leicester. Wow, who'd have thought? A few months ago when I was first asked to do this, and I said, yeah, what an idiot I was. It's just a logistical nightmare, as you've probably already seen, but I'm absolutely thrilled you're here. And it's my pleasure and honour to welcome you all here today. And my big idea, I guess, my talk, is about how I think by working together, the community and the prisons can support each other for mutual benefit. The slide there shows a Nile crocodile and an Egyptian plover. And I imagine every one of us has an element of pride in the bravery of the plover as it moves in and out of the jaws of the crocodile. And I dare say some of us have an element of prejudice when we think, yeah, that's okay, but I bet the crocodile eats it in the end. But of course, the reality is very different. The two share a symbiotic relationship in which the crocodile gets its teeth cleaned of rotting and decaying flesh, which might otherwise cause infection, and the plover gets a meal of rotting and decaying flesh. I think you kind of know what I mean. Some of you are going to be looking at that and thinking, Phil's been really clever there, because that's a really good analogy of the prison and the community. And some of you will no doubt be thinking that the crocodile represents the prison. I could argue very cogently that actually I think the prison is represented by the plover. But of course, in a symbiotic relationship, it's irrelevant which side is which, because both parties win. One of my favourite films is A Beautiful Mind, starring Russell Crowe as the brilliant yet incredibly troubled economist John Nash. In the scene depicted on the screen, John and his colleagues are in a bar when in walk a group of ladies, one of whom is perceived to be more attractive than the others. John's colleagues immediately begin to strategize on how best they can approach this lady to get a date. John realizes that if they all go towards this lady, they will most likely block each other and none of them will get a date. John surmises, probably rightly, that following that, the men will move on to the other ladies, who of course will be offended at being perceived as second best, and who also will most likely reject their advances. John determines that the best outcome for the individual and therefore the group is to avoid the perceptively more attractive lady and instead focus on the others, which would enhance their chances of getting a date. Now, as with a lot of Hollywood portrayals, this is not actually a very good example of Nash's equilibrium theory. But if it's good enough for Hollywood, it's certainly good enough for me, and shows again how by collaborative working, both sides can get benefits. This picture was taken by one of my incredibly talented prison officers and shows the prison looking out towards the turrets, or the castle, as they are sometimes known. The castle is a cultural landmark in the city, and some 20 metres beyond that is a very busy main road, which takes thousands of people in and out of the city centre each day. I've no doubt some people look at the turrets and the wall and wonder what goes on inside there, whereas others probably don't give it a second glance. But about a year ago, when I first opened up my doors to the community, I was taken by the amount of local people who told me that as children, if they were naughty or bad, they weren't threatened with bed, they were threatened with going to the castle. A more charming story was that of a lady who told me as a child she was told a princess was held in the castle. And I have to say, I don't know who was more disappointed following her tour. The lady who established there's no princess in here, or the lady's parents, who I've no doubt got a right good kicking for lying to her all those years ago. And finally, and in many ways, the reason we are doing this event today, to try and dispel some of these myths and prejudices, was a group of colleagues who, upon seeing prisoners for the first time, remarked, "Ooh, They look just like us. I said, yeah, wouldn't it be good if everybody in the criminal justice system had two heads, as that way we would know they were guilty. But of course, there's a reason they look just like us, and that's because they are just like us. Leicester is unique in many ways, that 62% of my men are from Leicester or the wider county of Leicestershire. For comparison, Nottingham has about 42% of its folk from Nottingham City or Nottingham County. And therefore, I would argue that whether we like it or not, my men are already an integral part of this community because they are all going to be released at some stage. Prison is tough. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Anybody who says prison is easy has not spent any meaningful time either working, visiting, or indeed staying in a prison. My men and the men all around the country go through tremendous challenges, and whilst nobody wants sympathy today, it is worth reflecting on the difficulties that these guys have to go through. I'm delighted so many people are here today, both as guests, as exhibitors downstairs, performers. We've got some more performers this afternoon. Also these fantastic banners that have been created, and also some catering. And I want you to meet with the men and talk to the men, not to my staff, talk to the men, because they live this every day and they understand far better than I do. When we started doing this, I was chatting to one of my men and he said, it's all well and good this, Phil, but all we actually want is a microwave for the fours. And so it is about understanding what it is from the men's perception. Many of you will have heard of the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule as it's more commonly known. I want to expand on that slightly by talking about the 20-60-20 rule, as it is my inference that 20% of my men are actually not ready to stop offending. Their lives at the moment are too chaotic. They haven't been able to stabilise their substance misuse or mental health issues. And whilst your support from the community is welcome, I have my existing stakeholders and partners, and we're happy to continue to work with them. I would further contend that at the opposite end of the spectrum, I've got 20% of my men who are unlikely to reoffend. Either it was a one-off offence in the first place, or more likely, they have now stabilised. That therefore leaves the critical mass of 60%, and it is that group that I want your support with. When I was asked to do this TEDx event, I did so without hesitation because I'd attended an event last year at the Curve, and I saw the opportunity that that brought to me to bring the community and the prison together. It's fair to say, I'm sure my staff, my senior management team, would wish I had hesitated because it has been a logistical nightmare to do this. Having cameras in a prison is not normally a good idea. But we did it because it was the right thing to do, and that in many ways has been our mantra since I arrived. Do the right thing, and the rest will follow. A few weeks ago, I attended an employment event at the City Hall where I spoke to business leaders, and I was told there is a shortage of apprentices. I have apprentices. I was told with the advent of Brexit that the service and hospitality industries may nigh on collapse. I have men who can support those industries. Today is very much about dialogue, and I want to start that dialogue. One of the opportunities that the prison brings, and you'll see from some of the other talkers, is that in many ways prisons should be seen as job centre plus. They should be seen as training academies. We have an opportunity to release our men in a structured way on release on temporary licence, which the next speaker is going to talk about in more depth. There are opportunities. There are opportunities to mentor, coach, interview my men, and also opportunities to support my staff. Similarly, this is a pretty good event for you guys to come in and hold your breakfast meetings or your senior management team meetings, and you are very, very welcome. But ultimately, I want you to start the dialogue. A year ago, when I started out with my partners, we were unclear about what it was that we could do, what I could offer, what they could offer. But we started small, gained confidence, and then expanded to a range now of activities, and be under no illusion the impact that has on the men. To close, today's event is in Leicester, but it could just as easily be in Exeter, Liverpool, Leeds, London. And as this is a global audience, let's say North America, Chicago, Atlanta, Dallas. I urge the community to contact their local prison, if it's not Leicester. Start the dialogue. I urge my peers, my governor grades, wardens, to make contact with the community and start to do the right thing. Because after all, it is surely incumbent on all of us to turn today's offenders into tomorrow's active participants in the community. Thanks very much.